I want you to think about the cost of you not adjusting well. When you're jet lagged, when you're shift working and shifting, what is the cost? It's the cost of time, productivity, having no energy with your family. And think about the benefit of you making these changes. Visualize what your life could be like if you made these changes.
If you're struggling with your vitality, energy, mood, focus, or sleep, this podcast is for you. Your host, Dr. Ann Sung, ER doctor and aerospace flight surgeon, will help you reach for the stars and remove the barriers or blockades that have been holding you back from living your best life. If you've been challenged by your health, relationships, or productivity, then it's time for a breakthrough. So here's your host, Dr. Ann Sung.
Hello, and welcome to It's Not Rocket Science Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ann Sung. Do you travel across time zones frequently, or perhaps you're a shift worker who is constantly switching from days to nights, maybe evening, graveyard shift all the time? And I know when I work in the ER and the ICU, I'm shifting all the time, or when I travel to Russia for work and coming back, when we go east, it's so much harder to adjust to the time zone than versus when we are going west, going from New York to LA. It's a lot easier that way. And it takes us a few days, even when we're shifting from days to nights, like 12-hour shifts, to even recover. And we feel like it takes us the whole entire day to recover. So I have experienced all of those issues with recovery. And I want to share with you some of the items and the tips and the habits I found to be very, very useful for either jet lag or to help sleep shift when I need to shift very, very quickly for work. And we're going to be discussing the cost of not shifting effectively and some of the tactics on how to shift, and regarding the effects of lighting to help you shift, the gut circadian rhythm, your nutrition, and recovery. So let's go ahead and think about how much it's costing us to do this shift work, and if we don't shift adequately. And the jet lag, if you're traveling, what is the cost of jet lag? You can say that, in terms of working, if you're in the healthcare field, that the cost of not shifting adequately is that you're tired, patient care suffers, your response time suffers, you're on the computer trying to do things, but your brain's just not catching up. And you're thinking to yourself, what am I doing next? And it takes you a few moments to get your attention, your focus back. It's really, really hard to focus. And so your productivity suffers, patient safety, perhaps it's an issue as well. It's huge. And if you are traveling for work or traveling for leisure, then if it takes you a few days to even recover, to get in sync with the time zone there, then the money that you have spent to travel there goes to waste for a few days. You can't do anything. You can't have fun. Or if you're traveling for work, for a meeting, you may not be as effective at the meetings or at work. Essentially, productivity goes down. You decrease the time that you get to spend with the loved ones or during vacation. Or perhaps if you're doing shift work and you come back from a night shift and you have to switch your days, those of you who do shift work know that it takes you an entire day to just shift back to be normal, maybe even a few days just to be normal. But definitely that first day, you can't really enjoy your time, your weekends off. So it's a huge, huge cost. And because of the cost, that's why it really gives us a sense of motivation and drive to do everything we can, every hack, every habit change we can in order to optimize this process if this is what we have to do for work. And number one thing I want to share with you is how to shift. So if your schedule currently is shifting backwards instead of forwards, so what that means is that when there's the morning shift perhaps, and then there's the evening shift, and then there's the overnight graveyard shift. So if currently your schedule is scheduling you, say, a week of morning, and then the following week is a week of graveyard. And then the following week is a week of evening. So you're kind of going backwards and shifting earlier and earlier. That is so much harder than shifting forward or a delay, essentially. So, we get this because essentially when we shift backwards, shifting earlier is that every time we're trying to shift, we're traveling from LA to New York. And then that every time you have to wake up earlier and earlier and earlier, and definitely it makes it harder. If you are doing shift work, then it will be useful for you to suggest to your superiors, or if you're in control of making the schedule, to shift forward or delay it instead. So what that means is that you can do a week of morning, and then the following week you do a week of evening, and then the following morning you do a week of overnights. So it's much easier for us to kind of delay the time that we sleep. So it's a similar concept that we're basically shifting when we're flying from New York to LA. So we have more time. It's just like our body is it's easier for our body. So that's the most important thing that you can do right now, is to shift forward, and to really, if you are not in control of this type of scheduling, then push for this with your scheduler, because it's I think the most effective way that can kind of help you if you're in this long term. Now, if you're traveling, that's a little difficult and you may not be in control of it. So you're just going to have to do all of the other hacks. So number 2 is light stimulation. So light stimulation has the most effective variable in terms of circadian entrainment. So what that means is that your exposure to light to your retina will help you shift depending on the timing of your exposure to light. So I think we have discussed the blue blocking glasses before. This is essential for shift workers, essential, and even people who travel across time zones, because say I am working nights, and when I get out, typically the sun is really, really bright. And if I want to go to sleep early, then I put on my blue blockers actually sometimes an hour before I get off shift, because in the hospital, there are bright LEDs throughout the hospital. So I start putting on my blue blockers an hour before shift, and then continue on when I leave the hospital. I make sure I never get exposed to blue light when I'm getting off night shift, so that, when you get exposed to blue light, it sends a signal to your brain that you don't have to produce as much melatonin. Your melatonin production decreases, and that definitely affects your sleep. And I think a lot of times when people get off night shift, they don't wear the blue blockers. That's why it takes them a while for them to get to bed, like 10 or 11 a.m. And that doesn't really give you a lot of time to sleep if you're working. If say your shift, it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p. to 7 a. If you're going to bed at 10 or 11 a.m., it really only gives you 6 or 7 hours of sleep, and you have to rush to work. So, and you don't have time to work out or do anything. And typically what I do, I put on the blue blocker glasses, get off at 7:30, take a quick shower, and I minimize any amount of light I'm exposed to at home. I don't turn on any light. All the blinds are closed. And I am typically asleep by 8 a.m. And I can sleep typically for 8 to 9 hours. Now, if I am just beginning to shift, then I do need some help of what's called Ultrail. This is what I take. It's like a herbal supplement that is mixed in with melatonin that you can find at CVS or Walgreens, but there are other brands out there that you can try that is not prescription sleep medication. I found that if I take prescription sleep medication, I actually don't get quality deep sleep. It gets me to sleep, but it's not real quality sleep. It's almost like it's like taking Benadryl. You wake up and you still have this Benadryl hangover. It's not restorative sleep. So what I do if I am switching from days to nights, I would essentially take Ultrail when I get off in the morning, and I would typically take 1 or 2, and it helps me to stay asleep throughout the night until, well, the daytime, but it will be my night until about 4 or 5. And there's restorative sleep. And so what if you're switching from nights to days? Now, if you're switching from nights to days, it would help that, of course, you get exposed to blue light, or sunlight is the best way. And then you just stay up again all the way until you're ready to sleep. So what that means is, like, when you get off, then expose yourself to blue light. It will help you stay up as long as you can. Perhaps you need to go to bed at 6 or 7 p.m. so that you can switch days again. So that is the light exposure piece. It's critically important to get blue blocking glasses. You can find that on Amazon, and it doesn't have to be expensive. There are ones online for $12, and it really, really will help you and train you to the time zone of your destination country or your next shift. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is the circadian rhythm of your gut. It's critically important as well to notice the timing of when you eat will affect your quality of sleep. So there are different scenarios. First, if you are going somewhere, it depends. If you're going somewhere where for a very short period of time, it takes you probably, 1 day to shift 1 hour of time zone difference. So if you're traveling to China, it's a 12-hour difference. It might take you over a week to shift to the timing of the light, and also the timing of when you eat. Your gut will take time to shift too. But essentially, your digestive process, when you digest, when you're supposed to sleep, that all has a circadian rhythm. And so it'll take you over a week or so. So what that means is that it depends on how long you're traveling. If you're only going there for 2 days, there's no point to shift. Like if I'm only working over nights for 2 nights, there's no point to shift my gut. Then with the timing of when I eat. So if I'm working 2 overnights, I keep my daytime eating schedule. So what that means, typically I would eat my dinner around 5 or 6 p.m. and I stick to that schedule. So when I am on night shift, my last meal is at 5 or 6 p.m. before I go in at 7 p.m. And make sure I eat really nutritious food, lots of live food, like not dead food. So live food are like green, purple, like something raw, like salads. So food that looks vibrant and alive. I think we know what live food is, and I make sure I get a lot of healthy fats, butter, grass-fed butter, nuts, and avocado, olive oil, olives, a ton of fat that'll satiate. It usually satiates me throughout the whole night. And I make sure that I don't eat or snack anything during the middle of the night, because at that time my body is not really it's not really used to digesting during that time anyway. And again, if you eat close to your bedtime, then your sleep is not going to be quality sleep. I know a lot of people, when they get off night shift in the morning at 7 a.m., they like to go for breakfast and then they go straight to sleep right away. Again, we've talked about how, like, digestion, if your blood is going to your intestine for digesting, then it can't flow over to your muscles or your brain as well for the restorative process that it needs, a detoxification process that, sleep does for you. So when I am shifting just very short, like 2-3 days, I do not shift the timing of when I eat. I keep to the same time. I will, when I'm going on shift, my routine is that I will usually make a bulletproof matcha tea, which is my go-to now for any sort of, that has low amount of caffeine. Matcha has something called L-theanine, so it's relaxed and calms you down too. There's no jitteriness at all whatsoever. And I make it bulletproof. So what that means is that I add grass-fed butter in it. I add medium chain triglyceride in it, so it's full of fat, healthy fat. Blend it all together. And usually that is probably holds me over maybe the first 2 to 4 hours of the shift. And so there's no more caffeine, any sort of caffeine. It has very low amount of caffeine anyway. And I don't drink coffee. I don't drink soda. And then I also would get green drinks or green powder to help me through the shift. Especially if it's my first overnight that I'm shifting when I'm really tired. because the next thing really I wanted to talk about is your nutrition of what you eat and the supplements. When we go through jet lag, when we go through overnight, we often have increase in cortisol, increase in stress. It's all an increased like mental stress as well. It's almost like we're putting our body through a huge like workout. We're walking around all the time, and our mind through a huge mental stress. So it makes sense that we need to replenish our body with the right nutrients so that we can have the energy to last throughout our shift and to recover as well. And I often see that what we put in our body especially during a night shift, is not energizing to us. And I firmly believe that we are what we eat, and food is information, because I listened to Dr. Mark Hyman and I completely agree with him. Food is information. Food, can help transform the type of genes that you express, the protein the genes that are expressed, which makes the protein. I really firmly believe that you need these antioxidants, you need these vitamins to function. It makes sense. But yet, during night shift, we order midnight cookies, we order pizza, because those are the only things available. When we don't have time to cook, we just order sandwiches, and those high carb meals put us into food coma. In addition to us already with normal circadian rhythm, we're already feeling low energy, and circadian rhythm is down from 2 to 4 a.m. time frame. So it's like a double whammy almost. That's why for me, I've been going keto for probably 6+ years or so, where I eat 50 to 70% fat, because I don't get that food coma at all. And I make sure I eat food that energizes me instead of bringing me down. Your body will know what it needs. You can tell if the food makes you sleepy, it's not really giving you the energy that you need. So I currently experience food coma very, very rarely. And it's typically after rice noodles, if there's rice, or if there's, I don't know, potatoes, anything that's, high glycemic index or high carb. But it happens to me very, very rarely now. So sometimes I would bring green powder that has all the vitamins, and I would drink that when I know I'm about to hit a slump. So about 12 a.m. or so, or 1 a.m. And typically that would be the last time I take in anything that has any sort of caloric and anything that may need to be digested, essentially. Or I would buy fresh green juice from local juiceries before the shift, and I would drink that, and there would be no sugar in the green drink. There are no fruits in it typically. And then that will hold me over throughout the rest of the night. So that is what I do. And there are other multivitamins that you can take as pills. I also take magnesium threonate, which goes straight to your blood-brain barrier, helps your brain. Magnesium is such an important micronutrient that helps in all of your cellular processes. And I essentially treat it like a workout. I put my body through mental and physical stress, and I do everything and I can in my power to recover my body like athletes. That's what they do. And they recover in nutrients, they eat something that's nutritious. It's the same thing. And I really believe that we need to treat our shifts or our work the same way. If you have a lot of mental stress or physical stress when you are at work or when you need to be productive. And the last thing I want to focus on is that if you have a stretch of days or nights, that I really want to focus on recovery. It takes a few days to recover. Sometimes you feel jet lag for a long time. And that is really when you need to get adequate sleep. That's number one. Sleep is what's going to help you recover. So don't do anything else if you can't get adequate sleep. Sleep is number one, at least 7 to 8 hours. And it's also the quality of your sleep. If you're getting deep sleep and REM sleep, then that's fantastic. If it's all you're getting is light sleep, then it doesn't matter as much if you're getting light sleep and you're sleeping 9 to 10 hours. You will not wake up as restored as you would have. And then I'll tell you one thing regarding sleep is that the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. So that means that the caffeine that you're drinking, it will take 6 hours to metabolize 50% of it. So really need to stop caffeine at least 9 or 12 hours before bed if you can help it. And do the sauna if you can, massage, do float therapy. I've discussed the benefit of floating in really, really heavy Epsom salt water. And also you can try meditation, anything that'll kind of calm your mind state, from all the stress that you have gone through, especially if you work in the ER. I mean, it is nonstop throughout the shift. It's really hard work. Your cortisol is elevating the entire time. So please treat yourselves to me time, recovery time. Set a day that you are free all day, have nothing on your schedule. I have Sunday as my me day. Have nothing on your schedule and put one item there for you to recover. So just to summarize some of the items we discussed, number one is I want you to think about the cost of you not adjusting well when you're jet lagged, when you're shift working and shifting. What is the cost? It's the cost of time, productivity, having no energy with your family. And think about the benefit of you making these changes. Visualize what your life could be like if you made these changes, and just pick one thing starting from your next time you have to shift, and pick one thing that you can change. Oh, there is one item I want to discuss, one last item regarding the timing of your meals. So if you are going to be shifting for a long time, like 2-3 weeks, or permanently, you're going to be traveling, you're going to stay there for a month, what I do to help me shift to reduce the jet lag is that actually I start shifting my eating schedule to match up with my destination. So same thing, like with the shift work, I start shifting my eating schedule. If I'm going to be on night shift for 2-3 weeks in a row, then I will start shifting a few days before to the night shift schedule. So it sometimes it's, you just do like an hour or two at a time, and the next day you do an hour or two at a time, and then you get used to it, and that will shift your GI system to that destination or that next shift schedule a little bit easier. It won't take as long. So that is one tip that I have started trying. I think it's worked very well for me. And so to summarize, number one, if you are shifting, your schedule is shifting backwards, or we can say eastwards, then see if you can ask your supervisor, or if you're in control of the schedule, to change it so that you're delaying your shifting forward. And the shifting, try not to go back and forth 2 days at a time, 3 days at a time. If you can help it, do at least 2 weeks, perhaps, or at least 2 weeks to kind of shift from days to nights. That would be optimal, 2 to 3 weeks. But just don't do like 2 nights days, 2 nights nights, 2 nights days, 2 nights nights. I mean, that is just terrible on your body. And I really feel like your body is going to get stressed out so much, you're going to age much quicker that way. And number two, make sure you get blue blocker glasses. And right before you go to bed, 2-3 hours before, wear those glasses so you're not exposed to blue light. But if you need to stay up, take off those glasses and look at sunlight, which is the best way. Number three, the gut, the timing of when you eat. If you're shifting just for 2 days and they're coming right back, so stick to the time of your original time schedule. So if you're only going to nights for 2 days, just eat like you would have during the day. So sometimes what I would do, I would wake up pretty late, like 2-3 p.m., but I would eat once then, but very high calorie count. And I would eat one more time at 6 p.m., very high calorie count, to make my daily calories. So I already eat twice a day with intermittent fasting, but this is like a 4-hour eating window essentially. So I can try to keep my eating schedule the same time as days. And if you are shifting for a long time, like you're going to stay on nights for a long time, or you're going to be in that destination country for a long time, then try to shift your eating schedule a few days before to match where you're going, essentially. Number four is your nutrition, your supplements. Make sure the food that you're eating have all the colors of the rainbow. that they are alive and not dead. Dead is like brown and dark. And you know when what food is alive and what food is dead, essentially. I think you know. Eat food that doesn't give you food coma, typically high healthy fat, not fried food, but because fried food oxidizes the oil and causes more inflammation. So my typical go-to is avocados, lots of salad, wild fish, olives, olive oil, lots of grass-fed butter, sometimes eggs. So it just depends on what you like. And eat food that energizes you. Take supplements during your shift if you need to. Green juice, green powder, magnesium, multivitamin, whatever you want. You just start with one at a time and see how you feel. Okay, see if it works well for you. And the fifth thing is recovery. Once in between shifts, in between like a long stretch, when you have time to recover, you really got to give your body the love that it deserves. I mean, love yourself like your life depended on it. This is a book that I recently read, and it's fantastic. And if we put our bodies through the circadian shifting and the stress of work, our body deserves our love. Our brain deserves our love. And do meditation, any sort of sauna, go out and play, any social gathering, perhaps, and also floating, perhaps that can help you relax. Any massage. Okay. So again, please pick one thing. If you don't take one thing that you can change, this is what I always propose, like one micro step that you can change and just try it out. And the momentum will propel you forward. You can see how these micro habits stack, and you'll see that it can be much different. Your life can be much different. Your body, your energy can be very, very different compared to before. I want to thank you so much for your time being with me here today. I'm really, really grateful here. And remember that everything we need is already within us now. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review in iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a private VIP day for a health and life makeover with Dr. Ann Sung herself. Then be sure to head on over to itsnotrocketscienceshow.com and pick up your free gift from Dr. Sung. Then join us on the next episode.